Shalom and welcome back to Aisha Torah, the practical spirituality series, overlooking the Temple Mount. Would someone be so kind as to erase this board for me? Yeah. Appreciate that. Well, that was an anticlimactic beginning to this live feed, but what we're talking about right now is mind expansion. The one thing I need is some water. Is there any water in there? Just because it rings doesn't mean you got to answer. So I'm on the 3-strike rule. 1 strikes, your phone's on. 2 strikes, you answer it. 3 strikes. Oh, thank you so much, Kobe. Thank you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol na'eh b'dvaro. You can close the door. This guy was handling my live online presence. He says that the first 3 seconds of your class have to be the best, or else they just skip it as they're going down. How do you think my first 3 seconds have been so far? I don't think I followed the first 3-second rule today. More explosion. Okay, here we go. We began yesterday the topic of mind expansion. And what we spoke about, just to catch you up a little bit, is a couple things. One of them is that, what's up, Troy? Sit next to this dude over here in the middle row there. So one of the things we spoke about was how that God can only speak through you, because you are like this. You're the end of the USB cable of God is your consciousness. And when you have constricted consciousness, not so much comes through you. You don't have a lot of intuition. You're more likely to get an accident or stub your toe or whatever. You're just not, when you're in that constricted place, you're not in your game. And when you're in an expanded consciousness, so your intuition's stronger, and you're more likely to experience something spiritual. But it really requires it. You can't really have spirituality with a contracted consciousness. Now, that's kind of interesting for us because a lot of us pray every day. For example, I pray 3 times a day. And here why am I praying? Well, there's various reasons why, but one of the things I want to happen there is there should be a connective moment. It should be something connective, and something spiritual should have taken place. Well, that's going to require me to be in an expanded consciousness. And I can't always do that. I mean, first of all, not everyone's a morning person, hence caffeine is very important for prayer. And for someone who's not a morning person, he should definitely pump himself up with caffeine. Now, there may be someone who said, well, I don't really do coffee, or I don't really, it's just not my thing. I don't drink coffee. But if he's an observant Jew who prays in the morning, like the rest of the observant Jews do, well, he doesn't have much of a choice, does he? Because unless he's just going to throw out every shacharis for the rest of the year, if your mind's not in an expanded place, by the way, there are morning people. My wife's a morning person. She wakes up, she's just like, oh. She's more expansive in the day than she is at night. I'm more expansive at night than I am in the day. Let's just get a poll here. You're more expansive in the morning or at night? Raise your hand for morning. 1. Raise your hand for night. The majority of us. But that's also because since electricity. I mean, if I asked you this question, pre-electricity, because now we're all totally confused, what's going on, because we're creating day at night. So it could be some of us are morning people. But I am not a morning person. And so, it's funny, my Rebbe used to always say that anyone who hasn't drunk a cup of coffee has never davened. Now, I was in the room when he would say that, and I didn't drink coffee before I davened. Because many years ago, my digestion had gotten linked. When I was 10 years old, my digestion had gotten linked. Is your phone off this time, please?
I found the cell
Oh, good for you. See, you never know. You never know.
But I don't speak Hebrew, so now I don't know what to do.
Oh, no. Give it to the guard. Give it to the guard. He'll answer.
It was really?
Yeah, he's great. He'll do anything. I mean, you can give him $100 and leave it for someone who's coming in a week. He'll do it. Really, give it to a guard. Just tell him you found it and someone's going to call. If he go back later and see if he gave it. Anyway, I hadn't had coffee ever before prayer. I hadn't had coffee in years because my digestive tract when I was 10 years old got linked to an embarrassing moment that I had when I was 10. And that embarrassing moment caused me to have a tremendous fear of public, meaning being around people. And it was directly linked to my digestion. And now, I mean, good luck not being around people. Like, how do you do that? You know, move to a cave, like live under a bridge? You're like, what are you going to do? And when you're in school as a kid, you know, well, I did drop out of school at 11. That was one move. But I made many others as well. But it didn't help. Wherever I went, there were people. Like, wherever you go, there they are. And so, anyway, but my digestion was horrific. A cup of coffee would have been like, I mean, I might as well just already hook myself up to an IV unit and put myself in the hospital for the cup of coffee because it's going to kill me. And so my Rebbe used to always say, and I'd been observant for years, praying every morning. And the Rebbe said that no cup of coffee, you didn't daven. But I couldn't drink a cup of coffee. And anyway, my digestion was healed at 33, right before surgery. I was slated to have my colon removed. When I finally realized the 10-year-old story. And I realized, oh my gosh, this is totally emotional. There's nothing to do with I don't have an issue with my digestion. I have an issue with connecting. Like, I have my digestion linked with an embarrassing moment in my life. And because it was public has become what kills my digestion. But really, I can unlink that. And I did. And I created a whole seminar around it. So, like, I've been running a seminar for 17 years with 8,000 graduates now called The Possible You, all built and healing many, many people. You know, 8,000 people have been through it, healing many people just because of my digestion. So in a way, that embarrassing moment was the best thing that ever happened to a lot of people. Meaning that you never know when someone's in a story that's horrific. Had you watched a movie and seen me at 10, there wouldn't be a dry eye in the house. Everyone would be crying their eyes out. Your popcorn would get extra salt at the movie from your tears. But in the end, it was a blessing, even though I really went through hell for 23 years. I mean, it was a rough time. So check this out. So my digestion heals. So now I can drink anything, eat anything. I'm like, fine. So I had my first cup of coffee before Shachris, before the morning service. Wow. Oh my gosh. I realized I had never prayed before in the morning till I had that cup of coffee. And ever since then, it's like, I don't even think about praying before my cup of coffee. And it's just amazing what caffeine does. And I go to a prayer group that does ecstatic prayer at the top of their lungs. It's an alternative prayer group. You guys ever been to an alternative prayer group? You've stopped by mine. Yeah, you ever been to mine?
Coming this Saturday.
Yeah, you're coming this Saturday? Yeah, my wife said yes, by the way.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, anyway, so I'm part of an alternative prayer group that prays at the top of their lungs. It's called Pinsk Karlin. And
Is that like those people at the Harvey synagogue?
yeah, they're Karliners. They do a kind of a fast version of it, but loud, and we do a slow version loud. Anyway, but you'll notice that the men keep loading back up on caffeine. And then I found out subsequently that caffeine was never even used at all, except by people who lived in the Amazon. And how did they use it? They didn't use it because they were trying to get up in the morning after eating too many Twinkies at night. They used it because they used it for ceremonies. They would use it not to stay awake at the ceremonies, meaning it was a caffeine ceremony. It was a coffee bean experience ceremony where people would, with a shaman's a medicine chief, would administer to the circle, everyone with instruments, and would go into these states of mind, to ecstatic states of mind, via the caffeine. Now, like a lot of ancient traditions, oh, by the way, chocolate is also a mind-altering drug, and hence there's such things as chocolate addicts and stuff, which I am not at all, but there are chocolate addicts out there. And turns out that was ceremonial. Chocolate was not a food. Chocolate was part of a ceremony, a mind-altering ceremony with the instruments in the dark in the rainforest. And people would, excuse me for getting dressed in here. I don't know what's going on with me. I think I like add a notch or something. It's like my shirt keeps getting untucked today. Anyway, they would have chocolate ceremonies to expand their consciousness in the forest to have a connection to God. And interestingly, unlike a lot of Aboriginal cultures which are more idolatrous, the Amazon people are not idolatrous. They're into God. Now, there are witches. You gotta watch out for the witches. There are witches and warlocks and stuff. There's definitely witchcraft. But the medicine chiefs are not witches and they're not warlocks. They are really into God, and you'd be shocked. I've gotten to sit down with some of these people just on panels as a rabbi. And they're as into God as we are. And they have laws and stuff. Boy, were they shocked when they found out a menstruant can actually serve you food. You know, because some of these guys go really hungry when their wives are at that part of the month. Because they do not touch any food products while menstruating. And they have a lot of different laws. But they're totally into God, these people. Now, do you think they are in touch with deities? What do you think on all their night ceremonies, on all these different things you find in the Amazon? What do you think? Deities? Deities are powers out there. Not God. Not God. Deities.
Yeah, they are.
Think they're into deities? You bet they're into deities. They're big time into deities. Why? Because when you're messing around in their ceremonies, there are a lot of those deities that aren't as friendly as you might think. Some of those deities have pointed ears and fangs. And they're not exactly happy that humans are hanging around. Now, they've got ceremonies that can send you right up to those realms. And on caffeine, or on chocolate, or on other things. I don't know what else they got, but they got stuff. And the deities aren't so happy you stop by. Human beings usually aren't hanging around those areas. So they have to know about deities because they got to protect the people in the ceremony, not to mention themselves. And how they protect them is with various things. One of the things which is really bizarre to me, I mean, to me when I watch them, I've seen some like National Geographic videos. To me it seems a little strange, but one of the things is they have a tobacco, which is not our tobacco. We also ruined that. Tobacco is also ceremonial. And no Native American ever inhaled it. It's poisonous. Tobacco is poisonous for the lungs. It kills people. So no Native American ever would inhale tobacco. Some of them actually feel like it's God's sweet revenge or sour revenge, meaning cancer, lung cancer, that it's God's revenge on white man. Yeah, because the white man moves in there, completely demolishes cultures that have been around for thousands of years that are God people, and they come in the name of JC, Mr., the who died for our sins. No greater sin was done than his own followers who went and ransacked God-fearing people throughout the Americas, North, South, Central. And they just wreaked total havoc and destroyed cultures that can never be found again. And the scariest thing about all their wipeout was the majority of the deaths were not just the murders from all the horrible wars they fought to take land, to just haul more stuff back to Europe. They actually, the majority of the deaths were from venereal diseases because people who live in the jungles are much healthier people. They don't have our illnesses. Whereas societal people have lots of diseases, as you know, and lots of hospitals, and they imported the diseases, most of which were STDs, sexually transmitted diseases, and wiped out gigantic, whole areas of population just through sexually transmitted diseases. Now, of course, they take a ceremonial thing like tobacco, which is a total Amazon ceremonial thing, and the Westerners just going to inhale it. They're going to take their chocolate and they're going to make Hershey bars. They're going to take their caffeine and turn it into Starbucks to somehow compensate for a ridiculous diet that they have to burn down rainforest anyway for, which the rainforest is the lungs of the planet Earth. They're going to burn down rainforests so that some poor guy who's really malnourished from overeating $1 hamburgers at McDonald's, because they need more grazing land, they're going to knock out a bunch of forest and create just grazing land so that some guy can buy a burger for $1. And then, of course, he needs caffeine because he wakes up in the morning drugged from having overeaten $1 burgers all night. And he wakes up, like, how else are you going to wake up like that? Last night, I had the munchies last night. Not going to lie. I was hungry when I got home. I'd worked a seminar for hours and hours. Then I did private counseling till 1 a.m. I finally get home, starving. What am I going to eat at 1 in the morning that's not going to rot in my stomach for 7 hours? The answer is fruit. Because fruit digests within a half hour. And so by the time you brush your teeth and you set up the water and we set up water, we have special washing in the morning, but by the time you've done all that and you got your pajamas and you're finally in bed and you read a little chapter of something and you said Shema, it's been about a half hour and you wake up feeling great, which is how we're supposed to live. But instead we've got jungle ceremonial stuff just being like consumed by Westerners, and they're inhaling the tobacco and then dying when no one ever inhaled tobacco. Tobacco is not supposed to be in the lungs of a human being. And anyway, but if you watch National Geographic, one of the ways they deal with the deities who are not so friendly is they blow tobacco on whatever it is they're doing the ceremony over. So they're literally like, here's the chocolate, which is called cacao, and they've got the cacao's probably melting in a pot in front of some guy with a bone through his nose, and and all the people surrounding with lights, candles, and but he's smoking his tobacco, like inhaling it only in the mouth, not in the lungs, just going, and then blowing it onto the chocolate to just purify it. Now, when I watch that, I was like this guy needs like a little chemistry lesson to let him know that tobacco just is not going to help, But who am I? I mean, these people thousands of years running these ceremonies, and people are attacked by negative forces. And I actually interviewed a guy from New York who said that he was in the middle of being attacked in the Amazon by negative forces in one of these such ceremonies. This is like the rich and famous today, like go to the Amazon for these things. You got to be like running a major hedge fund to do this, it's become like, how like wealthy people they have like their big bucket list of all the things they got to do before they die. So like the most popular one in the last few years is these trips to the rainforest, where you go in these like all-inclusive trips into the jungle and let the shaman just pour you his brew, whatever is going to go on there. Anyway, but this guy was genuinely being attacked, and he was starting to convulse and stuff, and he was going into seizures and stuff, and the dark side was on him, big time. And he just wasn't welcome there, probably because he was Jewish. Meaning, what the hell are you doing down there in the first place, Jew? So anyway, but he's telling me this, and he's in a room with 30 men in the room, meaning other wealthy businessmen. They're all in the room together, and what happened was, and this is in pitch black, meaning no one should be knowing what he's going through, and it's in silence. So he's basically in silence, and he says all of a sudden, when he was really in trouble, all of a sudden the leader, the medicine chief with the bone in his nose, comes with leaves that he's shaking, and brings him by his head and starts shaking him vigorously right by his head. And he just watches the forces that came to get him. He just watches the forces come to get him, just go like, phoop. And he was back to like whatever place he was, that he was not welcome in. And he was suddenly okay to be there for a while. And so, meaning, how did the medicine chief know with 30 men in the room that this is the guy who needs the leaves shaken and knock out the dark side? Now, what was interesting about that story was I was learning some Zohar, which is Kabbalah. I was learning the Zohar on the 4 species that we shake, the cosmic vegetation that we shake. And it turns out that the long palm frond, which has a loose tip up there, is that you have to take that loose tip there and shake it in 6 directions. But you got to make some noise with it. You know, it's got to be, you know, in all the directions. And you're always bringing it back to center, so it's really 7, because you're always taking it back to the center, which is the 7th dimension. That's Shabbat. You know, that's the inner part of the Jewish star, which is the perfect form. Jewish star is the like ultimate primary shape, if you know about fractals and things like that. So and by the way, if you fold in all the star, if you fold in a Jewish star, Star of David, it perfectly fits in that hexagon. Is that a hexagon? 6 sides? It perfectly fits in the hexagon, meaning those are actually unfoldings from within. So if you actually fold, you would think they overlap. There's no overlap. If you have a perfect star, you're about to see my drawing. It's not going to come out so perfect because I'm not much of a drawer. But let's see. I'll make a triangle and then another triangle. So if you fold all these in, I'm not going to be able to do it properly. Oh gosh. You see what's going on there? Yeah. So the Jewish star is a very serious symbol of spirituality, and it's got the 6 days, and they all unfold. They're all unfolded. Really, everything's Shabbos, and that's why we call it. That's why we call this Shabbos place. It's really the center of the week, and then there's unfoldings, and that's why we call, for example, today's Yom Shlishi Shel Shabbos, and when we count the days, this is Yom Shlishi Shel Shabbos, the 3rd day of Shabbos. It's an unfolding of Shabbos, and then they all fold in when we're back to the center of the week. You guys have been thinking Shabbos is the weekend. It's not the weekend; it's the middle. It's the center of the week, and Shabbos gives to Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are sucking off. They're siphoning off the next Shabbos, meaning they're pulling their energy from the coming Shabbos, and then you get back to Shabbos, and then it gives. That's why you'll notice those who are praying every day, you'll notice that when we sing the song of the day tomorrow, the last lines are Lechu Naranana, which is the beginning of Kabbalat Shabbat. The last lines of Wednesdays, which is the 4th day, starts with, the last lines is the first lines of Kabbalat Shabbat. Why? Because now we're entering into the energy of next Shabbat, because we're going to be pulling from that energy of Shabbat. But everything flows from the center, which is Shabbos. Yeah.
It's also probably why you can say Havdalah until Tuesday.
Right. You can say Havdalah till Tuesday. There's one Rebbe who says Havdalah on Tuesday. That's the Rebbe who doesn't sleep, but now does because he had a stroke. But he didn't sleep for over 50 years. Anyway, but he keeps Shabbos till Tuesday, which is important to know if you're his Hasidim, because not only is he not coming to the phone, if you'd like to have him visit at a family event, well, let's say you're making a bris. Well, that's going to be the 8th day. So if you want him there, you're going to have it at his house, because he's not going to be traveling till after Tuesday.
Which Rebbe is this?
The Umption of a Rebbe.
Jerusalem?
Jerusalem, yeah. English speaking, from the U.S. And but he's considered the prayer master of our generation. Every generation has a prayer master, and we're missing a lot of different kinds of masters this generation, but we do have a prayer master. That's the Amshin of a Rebbe. He's considered the prayer master. He's also outside of time. So like right now, what is it today? He very well could be doing tomorrow's Torah reading. Yesterday we did Torah reading on Mondays. It could be he now finally got to Monday's Torah reading, meaning it's Monday morning for him now. Like he's not part of time.
So does he somehow keep 7 days?
Of like Jewish schedule of prayer? I don't know how he pulls it off. I really don't. And there's 9 men who are at all times not 9, meaning there's 9 people, but there's probably about 40 that your name's in the mix. So he always has a minion. So like you can get buzzed on your phone that we're going to need you there from 3 a.m. Remember, he's not sleeping for over 50 years. So we're going to need you there from 3 a.m. till 5 a.m. For those 2 hours, can you please be part of the minyan because that's when he'll be at Shachris. Shachris at 3 a.m. till 5 a.m. of the previous morning or 2 mornings. I don't know. I don't know how he does this. Now, it gets really hairy when you got like Yom Kippur, you can't eat. So what day is he on? Where is he at? And suddenly you can't eat. It's not so simple. Because he has to keep the Torah, meaning he can disregard its time. He can. We're not allowed to. No man's allowed to ignore the rabbis when it comes to time except for him. And he can disregard time rabbinically, but he can't disregard the Torah. Time Torah. Torahly? Biblically. He can't ignore time biblically. So for example, Passover night, like he can't be eating a sandwich. Yeah. He could be eating the Hillel sandwich, man. That's about it. Okay. Now, where are we at? I'm talking about a million things at once. So I'm studying the Zohar on the 4 species, and it's talking about the sound of the tip of this palm frond that we're shaking. And it explains the reason why we shake that palm frond is because it pushes out the dark side, meaning all the forces of evil that come in to get us, not just because we're doing this super powerful mitzvah, which they're not happy about, but also throughout the year, because that's why we're doing it 7 days. Anytime we do something 7 days, it's for the whole year. You're in a sukkah with joy for 7 days, the whole year. Okay, that's for your whole year. Everything we're doing, you're lighting Hanukkah candles there, it's 8 days, but if it's going to hit 7, that's a year of light. Okay, everything with 7s is for your year. A lot of people will ask you, like in Hebrew, they'll say, Ech haya Sukkot. Like a friend will say, how was Sukkot? And what you say back to him is not how was Sukkot. Lo ech haya Sukkot, not how was Sukkot. Ech nichnas Sukkot. How did Sukkot go in? Meaning, Sukkot is a download. Those 7 days are a download of joy. In a month and a half, we're going to have a download of light. Purim, we're going to have a download of stuff that would take me 5 hours to explain. Yeah, Purim's really intense. It's just one quick day, but it's whoa. And then Pesach's a download of freedom. Shavuot's a download of Torah. These are downloads of our year. We're picking things up. This is why I always tell people that when it comes to studying Torah in Israel, which you guys got to do, sorry about you on the screen, unless you're watching this here, that studying Torah in Israel, for people who didn't grow up keeping Torah, I tell them that you got 3 weeks of essentials is to get your head on straight, which I call worldview. Anyone who sits in this class for 3 weeks knows more than a Reform rabbi when it comes to how we look at the world. When, I don't know, current event, whatever's going on right now, you got the green world, that's the post-60s millennial, egalitarian, feminist, gender neutral, racial politics. I don't know what you call the thing. But today they're calling it green, by the way. So if you ever heard someone talk about green, it's kind of gotten this nickname now, because it's just got too many words, the whole thing. But if you're in this class for 3 weeks and then you go back to wherever you're from, and now you're getting more pressure from all that world, which is the whole media, it's all the academics of universities and stuff, it's all the high schools and everything. It's just being shoved down your throat by the liberal left. All you need is 3 weeks here. You come back and you're just like, you're made of Teflon. You're just made of Teflon. Like you'll be back wherever you're from. You're just like, it means nothing to me. Like I am not that, and that doesn't mean anything to me. Now, in 3 weeks, you're not gonna be able to answer them if you got in an argument. You're not gonna be able to fight back. But at least you're Teflon now. It just slides off. You're non-stick for all that stuff they're gonna try to shove down your throat out there. And you should know that if God forbid they don't stop it, meaning if it doesn't end quickly, it will be death and destruction. And I can explain to you why, not just using Stalin as an example, because he was in that camp. And more people died as a result of that camp through Stalin than maybe perhaps any period in history. So it's absolute death and destruction where that leads. But a lot of you might say, well, no one's going to death and destruction. Everyone's pinning daisies on your shirt, man. We're all the same. We're all one, like, no, doesn't sound like death and destruction to me. It sounds like love. Except what? We all have, and this is something Judaism gets that they don't get, is we all have a dark side. We got a dark side. And that's what kind of this class has been all about. We spoke about dark side that's not you. It's dark side that's kind of PO'd that you showed up with your 4 species. Okay, we got dark side after you for that. We got dark side after people in the Amazon for, I don't know, eating chocolate. But we've got dark side inside. There's dark side in you, man. Any of you think you couldn't be, I mean, you're Jewish, so probably not, but any of you don't think you couldn't have been a part of Stalin's death camps as an officer running the camp. Any of you don't think that could be you, means you're the most dangerous person in this room, because that means you're denying your dark side. And that is really this secret danger of the liberal left, is that there's no dark side. Please don't give my kid a grade anymore. Don't let them feel bad about themselves. They should only feel good about themselves. There should be no more bullies. We're not going to educate kids how to deal with being bullied. We're just going to eradicate mean tyrants. We're going to make everyone equal. Everyone's got to feel good. No one should make more money because he happens to be better at brain surgery. Whereas you all know, throw as much money as you can to people who are smart enough to open a person's brain. Because if they're operating on your father, you want the guy who was best for it. And you want to throw money at people like that. You want to make people want to do that job if they're that smart. Because if I were that smart, I would not want to do that job. But start throwing money that way, maybe I'll be willing to touch the inside of people's brains all day. You want to throw money on those people. But no, it's not equal. And so what happens, they deny the dark side. They don't want to say there's such a thing as dark side. And this is all you should know. It's all outcome. Back to the mind-expanding substances. This is all a direct outcome of when those plant medicines, including the chemical compounds of LSD, hit the streets of the U.S. And people realized, hey, wow. I mean, it's kind of like Shema Yisrael. They're all like, wow, it's all one. It's all one. We're all the same. We're all equal. And so they took what should have been the nicest message in the world, because we're all about that message. We don't need the drugs, but we've got the message. We know we're all the same. We know we're all equal. But at the same time, Judaism clearly distinguishes skill sets. You're really good at something, or you're particularly smart. So we want you to be making more money than someone who's, a little more going to be building homes with a hammer and nails. We want you making more money, even though you seem to be doing less. But there's things that we need you for. And we want you making more money. And we want the most qualified people doing the most difficult tasks that require, intense amounts of intelligence, lots of intelligence. But these people in the 60s, the hippies of the 60s, who basically have inherited Western Civ, and they're also in Western Europe. These people inherited the 60s they took the good lessons, but they forgot, they don't have Torah. They don't have this understanding. And by the way, if you do have this understanding, they will vilify you. You are the villain. Jews today are the villain of these people. These are the people behind BDS, which is just a veiled version of Nazism. All we've done in the state of Israel is help these people. They wouldn't have cell phones if it wasn't for us. And their big, their automated cars they're so excited about. Like, good luck doing that without Israelis. Having your car drive itself. They're happy to use our products, but when it comes to to what they inherited from the 60s, a total washout of and a misunderstanding of the oneness of all of us due to chemical compounds that went into their bloodstream at rock concerts. And to the point of not recognizing the dark inside. Because they're really, when they're on those things, there's no dark inside. It's good. Those chemicals are good for just letting everything be light. And you come out of that experience and you feel like your dark side's gone. But it's not gone. And people who are not at rock concerts, who take those kinds of chemical compounds more seriously. Shalom, welcome. How you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Thanks for coming up from the wall. I know when you come with this rabbi, you're from the wall. So you're off the wall. When those people took those chemical compounds at rock concerts, of course taking LSD at a rock concert is going to be fun. And it's going to be light. But people are a little more serious about their lives, who are deeper investigators into those compounds, meet the dark side. They don't have one issue. They don't have that hippie liberal left washout. People who are serious about these compounds from the Amazon and all these different compounds. They know a lot about the dark side. They're not denying it. They're facing it. They're really hyper aware of the dark. I personally believe the ones I've met are more aware of the dark side than ultra-Orthodox Jews, who you'd think are really good at the dark side because, they're always talking about the Yetzer Hara and the evil inclination, etc. Except what? What's their problem? What's the problem with Orthodox Jews and the dark side? Is that they think that if you just keep the laws of Torah, meaning if you just avoid the don't do's, all the don't do's, if you just avoid all those don't do's and all the details, and there's lots of them, that you no longer are subject to the dark side.
It's defeating it, no?
What?
Defeating that?
It does defeat it, but that you don't have a dark side. Because you don't have a dark side. The dark side's going to leave you alone. You're suddenly exempt from the dark side because you don't eat pork.
Did it get stronger?
Yeah, right. Well, maybe it gets stronger, but I'll tell you this much. The dark side loves someone who thinks it doesn't affect them. You know why? Because now it's duck hunting season and you're the duck. Because you don't know when to duck. Speaking of ducks, you don't know when to duck because you think you beat the dark side because you're Miss Halacha. You're Mr. Halacha. And I know people like this. I've had to deal with people like this. And they're no fun because I'm quite aware of my dark side. And I'm a halacha guy, big time. And I'm also a very good boy.
So what do you do?
But I'm aware of my dark side. And because I'm aware of my dark side, I will not be the officer of a death camp for Stalin. Because if you're aware of that dark side, you're watching for it. You grow muscles to protect yourself from it. You're someone who's vigilant against it. And it's so easy to whitewash that dark side with being Mr. Orthodox Jew and turn everything into Uncle Moishi. Well, meanwhile, you're just you're not even drinking caffeine before Shachris. You don't even daven.
You don't believe there are certain people that can destroy it completely?
The dark side?
Yeah.
Destroyed completely. There have been individuals in the past, and there may be in the future, such people. For example, we know that all the years that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who's the author of the Zohar, all the years that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was alive, there was never a rainbow in the sky. Now, I happen to like rainbows, so maybe I wouldn't have been that happy about it. But the rainbow's a sign that God sees. I know when you read the book of Noah, that you thought it was a sign for us, that God will never destroy the world again. No, who's the sign for? It's for God. Meaning when God's looking at our planet and he's just like, oh man, forget it. I'm pulling the plug. What does he do? He makes a rainbow and reminds himself, so to speak. Obviously, this is all, we're giving people stuff on God. God's not a person who needs reminding, nor does God regret anything, because God's the one doing everything. But yet the Parsha of Noah said, right before the Parsha of Noah, it says he regretted having created the world, whatever that means. But God sees his rainbow and says, don't destroy the world. Now, all the years Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, on your question, Mayor, all the years Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was in the world, there was no rainbow. He was the rainbow. Meaning, he was the guy that just knowing he was around, you knew we were safe. He was the rainbow. That's what it says, that he was the rainbow. Because as long as he was around, God would not destroy the place. They say that about certain rabbis. Like they used to say that about Rav Noach Weinberg. Rav Noach Weinberg, he created Aish Torah, and here it was like the Baal Tshuva movement was just flying. People were like chasing down tzitzis makers just to put them on. It was like Judaism was the most popular thing since sliced bread at that point. This was like 1970s till about 2005, maybe. I don't know how long it lasted, but it was a while. And so there were. I heard someone say that they're very scared of flying. Anyone here ever had a fear of flying? I mean, all of us have a little fear. You gotta have some fear. But there was someone who could not fly. I mean, they were petrified. But they had to go somewhere. It was like some emergency. They had to go somewhere. It was a funeral. I don't know what it was. They had to go. So they're on the plane and they're like seriously going into a panic attack. And they've just closed the door. So it's like now they're getting like claustrophobic too. And they're like, ah. So he was starting to freak when all of a sudden he sees walking down the aisle Rav Noach Weinberg. And all his panic attack just disappeared. Because he knew that this rabbi on this plane, it's going to make it. There's no way this plane's going down. Generation needs him. Too much. Meaning all the engines could just fall off the plane and it will glide. It'll glide to a runway somewhere, Anyway, ever since I heard that story, which was many years ago, I was like a young guy like these guys is. I was just sitting in this class, like trying to just get like the THC out of my bloodstream, And so, but I heard that story while I was sitting in one of these classes like this. I had long hair and stuff. And you know what I said to myself, sitting there with my long hair and like, just trying to pay attention. I said to myself, I want to be that guy. I want to be someone who made such a difference in the world that me being on an airplane makes everyone relax. Be that guy. Be the guy who's so important for the generation that God's got to protect your travels because you're making that kind of difference. And ever since then, I went for it. I'm still going for it. Now, even right now, I'm on this like crossroads that I need so much courage to even face, but I feel like I'm on a crossroads now. And what is the next move for me? So definitely, I'm in that place right now because I think if I stay in this holding pattern, I'm not sure the flights are so safe. I feel like they've been very safe till now, but I feel like I got to make some moves. And not sure what to do. But got some ideas, but all of them are pretty hairy. You had a question? Yeah. Or a comment?
But we're all important for this generation. Like, there's a reason that we're all here in this world, So.
For sure. It's just not necessarily keeping a plane up.
Why not?
Because planes go down, Planes go down with Jews on them, and Gentiles, who are very important. Yes?
You mentioned before that to get rid of the dark, just not doing the the light acid, it's definitely not going to get rid of the dark side. Were you doing acid is very different?
Doing what?
Mitzvah acid is actually very different to that. Like it does help get rid of it?
No, it's an interesting question. He asked if the positive commandments get rid of dark side. And the answer is they don't. They actually invite it. Like, for example, the mitzvah of doing the lulav. that invites dark side. Now, some mitzvahs invite more than others. Like, for example, prayer is a little more dangerous. So that's why there's certain parts of prayer we flip to Aramaic. Why? Because all those deities throughout the world, meaning all those beings out there, their job is just transmitting. They transmit, like, how do you think you're in a room right now? We're only in a room right now because God's saying, for example, let there be, earth upon the water. And that created minerals, and hence we're in this cement, steel reinforced building. He also said, let there be vegetation upon the earth, and that's how I'm wearing a cotton shirt. That's how there's wood on this board, and there's wood paneling back here. But him saying that and it happening has to go through a whole system. And by the way, those the shamans in the jungles, I asked you, do you think they're into deities? And the answer is, you bet they're into deities. And then
They also have to go through a system.
they're going through systems. So is the ones in India, and all the different Aboriginal leaders are going through the system.
Rabbis are going
Oh yeah.
systems?
So what I was going to say is, you think they're into it. They don't have the details. We actually have the details. I could show you a list of hundreds of beings whose last name is Tron. Meaning this Tron and that Tron and this Tron and that Tron, which is very interesting that we say protons, neutrons, electrons. And I even know the name of the top Tron. And we don't say that name, and I'm not going to say it. But it's very interesting that the top Tron, because he's the top of the entire heap, like meaning the whole creation's flowing through that Tron. Trons are very high, and they're the highest. And the top Tron, whose name we don't say, but it begins with META, which is kind of funny, that's what it's called. But we don't use that term, because you don't want to mess with saying that. Anyway, but that top Trons, everything's running through that Tron. And so they don't know that stuff. You're good luck finding some guy with a bone through his nose knowing anything about Trons. They don't know that stuff. They know low level stuff. Meaning way down the system. They don't have access to that stuff. Why do we have access to that stuff? Because when you're eating, drinking chocolate brew, or the caffeine brews, or all their other brews, which are probably stronger, I'm sure, you're going down up. So you only get to know the ones that are down below. Where do you think prophecy comes from? Down up or up down? Prophecy.
Up, down.
Prophecy's up down. Well, our whole tradition, the whole tradition of Israel, we're an up down tribe. We're the only up down tribe, and that's why we're not into ingesting things, right? We don't ingest things. I mean, besides coffee in the morning, obviously, but just kidding. We're not ingesters.
Meaning ingesting things to get to a higher level.
To move up the system.
Right. We're trying to bring the system.
We're like,
Yeah.
I want to get myself so cleaned out spiritually that God starts talking through me up down. And I want to know enough Kabbalah that I'm able to access the Trons and start, moving around those places where, that's like serious sci-fi thriller. Go into those areas. But we know the stuff because the rabbis wrote it down when the Romans were after us. The rabbis are like, we better start writing quick because this ain't going to last long. Meaning this kind of information is going to be disappearing really quickly with what we were going through because we had a full Holocaust. Second Temple destruction of the Romans was a full-on Holocaust. And even worse than the one under the Nazis because that Holocaust came with losing our nation, losing our temple, losing all the secrets and everything we knew from Sinai. And so they just were like, write. And they just started writing. And like, some of the rabbis were like, we're not allowed to write this stuff. And they're like, write it anyway, write it. So that's why you can look at some of these books are oral tradition, Mishnah, Gemara, Zohar. All of that's oral. And that's why if you notice when you open a Mishnah, it's so cryptic. Like if you want to say something, say it. Like don't encrypt it like that. The reason why it's so cryptic, to keep it what? To keep it oral. The reason why Torah is so hard to learn is so that you gotta talk it out with somebody. I learned a piece today that was like, not in a million years could you have understood it if someone wasn't sitting across from you just banging it out with you. There's no way I would have gotten that. It had to be an oral discussion that got us to what they were saying. Now, once we got it, we look back and we're like, oh yeah, okay. That's what it's saying. But it was encrypted. And Kabbalah is like triple encryption. quadruple encryption. Some stuff's 100 levels of encryption. You know, they had a rule for Ashkenazim that you had to be 40, know all the Torah, and like all these rules before you could read that stuff. Did you know that that's not even relevant anymore because none of us would understand it? It's so encrypted, it doesn't matter how old you are. You can't comprehend it to be a danger to yourself or others. The problem was there was a time where even young people had that level of scholarship that they could read really dangerous stuff and then be of danger. Today, that's not good luck. Good luck comprehending any of it. You can't understand a word of it. And this with translating each word. I mean, I can read Aramaic. I can translate the words of a lot of this stuff. I can even get the whole sentence, translated. What it's talking about, God knows. So it's hardly dangerous. So even the 40-year-old Kabbalah restriction for that only Ashkenazim embrace, Sephardim are like, forget about it. We're not into that. We're not banning Kabbalah. I mean, it's like, what is that? It's like a prohibition. But the Ashkenazic community was reeling from a false Messiah who had duped the Jewish people into believing he was the Messiah using God's names. And it's not witchcraft, but he was using God's names to do stuff that was causing...
Meaning, I didn't say witchcraft, I said Kabbalah.
Which ended Kabbalah, yeah. For Ashkenaz. At least in the general population. Stayed in the scholarship. Okay, now, we're basically going to wrap this baby up. It's just that there was one more thing I'm in the middle of that I had to wrap up. How do we get on this? We're talking about writing it down, write it down the trons. Oh, is that we have way more detail about all these powers that be. We know it all. We know way, way more than the Aboriginal medicine chief. Believe me, we know a lot more and way higher up the system because we're an up-down, we're a prophecy community. And I'd like all of you to start feeling the prophecy, by the way. I don't mean prophecy, but feeling it, because if you're keeping Shabbat, well, how do you know about Shabbat? We have a book from a prophetic experience at Sinai that says keep Shabbat. So when you're doing Shabbat, man, you're doing the prophecies. If you're wearing tzitzis, you're in prophecy land. You're wearing the black box tefillin, you're in prophecy land. You're hanging in a sukkah, that's prophecy. We're living prophecy, man. Don't think it's just, I'm doing some commandment. You're involved in prophecy. You're aligning yourself with what prophets align themselves with in order to receive prophecy. But all our commandments are really prophetic commandments. And the negative ones are how to get out of the way so that you're not in the way of things flowing. And the positive commandments are to get yourself really connected. But to answer your question, is that I'd mentioned also in prayer we switch some things to Aramaic because by the way, prayer is going up the system. And when you go up the system doesn't like some of that stuff. It wants to knock you down. Right. So we flip it to Aramaic. The angelic beings don't understand Aramaic. So what do? They send it through phonetically because they have to send through. They send it through phonetically. They don't know what in the world they're doing. Kaddish, for example, Yiskadal. Don't say Yiskadal, say Yiskadal. It's Aramaic. You send through the Aramaic. The angelic forms have no idea what's going on, so they're just transmitting they're doing their job, and God rearranges it back to what it means when you said it. And that's why it's important to have kavanah there, because without the kavanah, then it's just going to stay phonetically gerbled into Aramaic.
What is phonetically, man?
Just the sounds, and that's why Uval Etzion, all that Aramaic there, it says specifically in the instructions, make sure you concentrate. Because otherwise it'll stay gerbled. It'll stay jumbled in the Aramaic. Aramaic's just jumbled Hebrew. It'll stay jumbled when it gets up there. So when we say the Uval Etzion, you have to concentrate on the Aramaic because that kavanah will unfold it when it gets upstairs. Shalom, everybody. It was a pleasure as usual.
Okay, I'm working on